welcome to the History Talks. I'm your host, Will. This is Sebastian. In this episode, we continue our series on ancient Rome, and we will be discussing the Gallic invasion of Rome. So, Sebastian, what led to the Gallic invasion of Rome?
The Etruscans were weakening. The Romans and the Gauls were invading, conquering city-states, and raiding, weakening the overall group to the point where Gauls started migrating to northern Italy. In particular, one group was particularly successful, the Senones. Coming from what is now France, they settled in northern Italy and formed a rather powerful and sizable holding up in northern Italy. Now, at the same time, the Romans were going through some turbulence. It all started back in 500 BC with the plebeians, not being too happy with how the patricians were separating themselves from the plebeians. They formed a sort of House of Representatives, if you will, called the Council of Plebeians, a counterpart to the Senate. Though within 6 years, its power was drastically limited. And for a long period of time, it would become a point of contention, not just the council, in fact the council took a backseat, to an overall problem of how much power should the plebeians have in relation to the patrician class. And one place where this came to a head was in 444. Now, for some context...
We're talking 444 BC.
Yes, in 444 BC. Now, for some context, it had already been established a new role called the dictator. The dictator was appointed by the Senate. And the Senate could also revoke the dictatorship or set a certain amount of time that the dictator would reign. And basically, the purpose of the dictator was to be a temporary office that would lead the military, would be given sole control of the military in order to respond to some crisis. And then when they were done with whatever military crisis, they would hand their power back over and give up the reins of dictatorship.
Okay, that's interesting because the Roman Republic had such an emphasis on making sure that there was no king. But at the same time, they wanted to give somebody this chief-like power, or this commander-like power. Their way of making sure that it was not a king was to limit the amount of time they would have the power. They would be assigned to be a dictator for a certain task.
Yes.
And then they had that time to complete the task, and then their powers ended after that.
Yeah. And in 444 BC, two consuls were elected that quickly became unpopular, and combined with some of the previous struggles over plebeian power, there started to be some conspiratorial factions among the common populace. And at first it was only really concerning to the consuls, who went to the Senate with, hey, here's some evidence for these conspiratorial factions. Can you help us? And the Senate responded with, that's your problem, not ours. But eventually, they grew larger. The Senate initially tries to appoint a dictator to deal with the plebeians, but because a large part of the army is plebeian, that doesn't go anywhere. The dictator's main power is complete control over the army. He's not a legislator, he's a
commander.
Yeah.
The dictator gives orders, and the dictator comes in and says, I order you plebeians to go put down the plebeians. And they say, no, not gonna work. So that doesn't go over too well. The dictator needs the support of the plebeians, or he has no power.
Yeah. With all else failing, the Senate eventually negotiates with the plebeians, and they create a new office known as the Consular Tribune, which is a plebeian counterpart to, of course, the consuls. And these consular tribunes, their power was not exactly defined. They were initially just another commander, and their power would wane and grow all throughout the existence of this office, which, by the way, the number of consular tribunes also was in flux, ranging from as little as 2 to as many as 6. Now, this all ties in because this shows that the state of Rome is not exactly one of cohesion and competence. You know, they had succeeded over some of the less competent tribes that neighbored them, and especially the weakening Etruscans. But they had used this for things like, you know, raiding their neighbors and expansionism that didn't sit well with certain rivals, particularly ones that may have wanted expansionism themselves or were tired of them being the targets of raiding. This, I am of course talking about the Senones, the Gauls.
Interesting. So we have conflict between the Romans and between the Gauls, and we also have conflict between the Romans and between the Romans, between the patrician class and the plebeian class.
Now, there is one man, a Roman general, who is not on board with the needless aggression. His name is Marcus Furius Camillus, and he'll become more important later on. But for right now, what you need to know is that because he's not being aggressive enough, the Senate revokes him of his generalship, exiles him, you know, kicks him out. They don't want him in Rome. They don't want to do anything with him. Now, they continue the raiding regardless, and the Gauls are not too happy with being one of the targets, you know. So, the Romans, they believe the Gauls to be, you know, barbarians, you know. They're little more than just tribal barbarians. Who cares? They're not as civilized as the Romans.
Okay.
So and as it happens, one of the prominent families has, you know, a few sons who, you know, they need a job. They are upper class, so they deserve something, you know, something cushy, but they're sent to deal with the Gauls, basically. Okay. And they were not exactly a good pick, being spoiled, arrogant, and eventually, while they're in Senone territory, they kill a man.
Okay.
And this is where the leader of the Senones, Brennus, decides he's going to turn his attention to Rome. Now, he had been...
Let me just stop you there. So there's conflict between Rome and between the Gauls, between the Senone in particular. So the Romans say, let's send some ambassadors, let's send some diplomats to try to smooth things over. Or maybe they really didn't want to smooth things over based on their choice of who they sent. You know, maybe it was an arrogance thing where they said, we are so high and mighty and we're dealing with these lowly barbarians. Our diplomats will just come and just, you know, act haughty towards them and things like that. Or maybe it was just, you know, maybe that was intentional. Maybe it was just being sloppy. Maybe
it was just nepotism.
Yeah, it could have just been some patrician said, oh, you know, my son's he's some trouble. Let's go send him off deal with the Gauls. Yeah. see if we can work something out with them. I've got stuff to take care of here in Rome. But whatever the case was, these diplomats were very undiplomatic and seemed to provoke a greater conflict than what already existed between Rome and the Gauls.
Yeah, and Brennus, who had already been, looking at the potential spoils of a southern invasion, decided that this was finally the just cause, and the provocation he needed to go and fight the Romans. So he starts by attacking a Roman ally / subordinate, and the Senate, hearing of this, raises an army. The exact size of the army varies from source to source, though it could range anywhere from 25,000 up to 40,000. This army is not super well trained, and after exiling Camillus, they don't have a lot of amazing commanders. And when they meet the Gauls at the river Allia, they don't do well. They're probably outnumbered if contemporary sources are to be believed. They try a tactic where they spread out in this line to encircle the Gauls, and Brennus responds by just smashing the center, chasing the left flank into the river. There's this very infamous moment where, the men are fleeing to the river, but they're being cut down and they're drowning in the Allia by Brennus's forces, and he eventually just cleans up the right flank.
Wow, okay, so this Roman army is sent to go and face Brennus. They are outmaneuvered, they're outnumbered, and they are dramatically defeated. They're driven to the river, they are driven into the ground, they are destroyed.
Yes. It's such a complete and total victory that Brennus actually takes a moment because he's afraid that this was an ambush, that was just bait.
Okay, interesting. So Brennus is unlike the Romans, appears to be more humble, or at least more cautious. The Romans went in with this sort of arrogance that, we're just dealing with these barbarians,
Yeah.
We are mighty Rome, we're dealing with barbarians. Brennus comes, defeats them, it's not even close. He thoroughly defeats them, and then takes a step back and says, that was too easy, right? What is this? This is a trap?
Yeah.
I've completely annihilated the Roman army. So he takes a step back.
Yeah.
And then what does he do?
And then he sends scouts to make sure that the path is clear, and knowing that there is no ambush, he goes to Rome, and with the city's walls undermanned, he sacks the city. He plunders it, he sets it on fire, he kills senators who he doesn't like, and he occupies the city and rules over it with a plunderous fist.
Plunderous fist, yeah, that sounds interesting. He is not interested in the long-term well-being of the city. He's interested in driving it into the ground and extracting what he can out of it. It sounds like.
So, but Camillus hears about this and looks to regather an army, something that is advanced by the remaining senators, appointing him as dictator.
Oh, interesting. So the same senators who banished Camillus, Marcus Furius, Camillus comes back. Marcus Furius, what a fitting name, comes back with a fury against Brennus, huh? So he's been banished, and they say, whoops, that was a mistake. We need this guy. He's good. Let's bring him back.
And he gathers an army. He raises the army. He trains them in some excellent discipline, tactics, and formations that would continue to stick long after his rule, because he uses this to defeat Brennus and chase him out of the city, liberate Rome and its territory, and become a hero, known to some as the second founder of Rome for his not only for his accomplishments, but for what he did to Roman culture.
And that sounds like a fitting name. I mean, Romulus built Rome from nothing. So it's like Camillus rebuilt Rome right when it was on the brink of destruction. And that's a very interesting thing if you think about that in the timeline of Rome, that Rome was growing, the Republic appeared to be at least mostly successful. They were gaining influence in the region until they got beaten down, their city was taken, their senators killed off. They are on the brink of just being wiped off the map. We wouldn't be discussing this. We wouldn't be having a whole history talks thing on Rome if they gave up at that point. But instead of giving up, Camillus comes back. The spirit of their army is to rise up and not give in at this point, but to rise up, come back better, and fight back. Which is really, if you think about it, in the whole history of Rome, it's something they had to go through, right? Maybe they had to be just pushed to the edge here so that they would come back stronger.
Yeah. Because ultimately, Rome is known for its martial culture, how important the legion is and serving in the army as the main form of, This is where it really starts. It's this attitude of never again. We're going to never again be destroyed like this. We're going to rise up and become stronger. That really, inspires Rome to adopt this, martial culture where it's expected that every man trains in military arts, where it's expected that Rome always masters the best tactics, where it's expected that the walls of Rome shall never fall.
Interesting. So if they had never gotten, if Brennus had never attacked them like this, they may have just gotten softer, more arrogant, more spoiled. But with Brennus coming in and pushing them to the edge, that's what drove them to this martial culture of wanting to fight that you're talking about.
Yeah, because even into the days of Caesar, the motto was protect Rome, conquer the barbarians to protect Rome, and even into the empire, the tactics and formations of Camillus would last, and using those. And even after Camillus' death, they used those to eventually conquer the Italian peninsula and grow to become a very strong power, not just on the central Italian scene, but on the Mediterranean scene.
Okay.
And this will eventually lead us into our next episode, where this expansionism brings them into conflict with Carthage, but that's a story for next episode.
Sounds good. Did you have any final words you wanted to say about the Gallic invasion of Rome?
There was a saying in Rome, Roma invicta. That is that Rome is invincible.
All right, fitting for the city that came back from the brink of destruction.
The eternal city.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Good job, Sebastian. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we hope to see you in our next episode on ancient Rome as we discuss the Punic Wars.